Hey guys, welcome to my first ride video on BMW's updated 2025 M2. Back in April 2023, I flew out to Arizona for the launch of the all-new G87 M2. Barely 12 months later, BMW gave us this updated version. Except if you read their press releases online, you'd think it was another all-new M2 because they called it the new M2. It's not new, it's an update, or an LCI as BMW called it, Life Cycle Impulse. This particular Sao Paulo yellow example belongs to Swift Performance. They actually purchased it off Mr. Tony Lewis at the back end of 2024. And because these guys love their track work, it's not just about aesthetics, it's also about performance modifications that actually make this car go and handle better. In the UK, a base M2 LCI will set you back £67,650, and that's for an 8-speed automatic version like this one. You'll pay an extra £1,200 if you want a 6-speed manual, and another £2,300 if you want a carbon roof. All of the pre-LCI G87 M2s in the UK came standard with the carbon roof and the carbon interior pack, but the later version doesn't. So although the retail prices only increased a little bit over the past 18 months, with the new updated car, you actually get less standard equipment, so bear that in mind. What did BMW change or give us with this updated M2? Well, the first thing to talk about is new paint colours, including this gorgeous Sao Paulo yellow. They also offered a silver wheel option. This particular car has black wheels, which actually suit this paint really well. The contrast between the black wheels and all the black styling, I think, works very well with the Sao Paulo yellow. But for me, I would still have the silver wheels because I think they just look stunning. Even though they're exactly the same design, they don't get lost on the side profile of the car. Aside from new paint and wheel colour options, we also gained a little bit more power. Under the bonnet, we have an S58, which is a 3-litre inline-6 twin turbo, the same engine that's in the M2, the M3, the M4, and cars like the CS iterations and even the M4 CSL. The pre-facelift or LCI M2 came with 460 horsepower. This latest version has 480 horsepower. All of that runs through the rear axle alone because the M2 is rear-wheel drive. And BMW claim this 8-speed automatic version will do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 4 seconds flat, which is really, really impressive for a rear-wheel drive car. Once you jump inside, you've got the new style flat bottom steering wheel, which I'm not the biggest fan of. We'll get onto that once we take it out on the road. And they've upgraded the infotainment system from operating system 8 to operating system 8.5. So it's a little bit quicker in use. There's a couple of extra features and functions on there, but otherwise it's exactly the same. But that's not a bad thing. On top of those updates that BMW have given this, Swift Performance have also added some kit, and we'll go through that right now. We have a Maxton front splitter, a Maxton rear boot lip spoiler. We have some MMX height adjustable springs and spacers. We have some MMX magnetic paddles, this power command module, some hard race adjustable toe arms, some Millway adjustable camber plates. We have a carbon Infinity design intake and a CSL carbon strut brace, Padgett Street Plus brake pads, front and rear, with braided lines and some racing brake fluid. I almost forgot to mention the sun visor strip. Also, there's my M2. It's a prettier car, isn't it? The F87 compared to the G87. This looks meaningful, but that's pretty. Before we get to the many positives around this car and build, let's start with a couple of negatives. And the first one is BMW's fault. You can probably guess what I'm going to say if you watch my content regularly. It's the updated steering wheel. It's dreadful. It's awful. It's almost like the entire car gets designed built, finished off at BMW M, and then they give this steering wheel to an excited 4-year-old who draws it completely out of scale, and it ends up like this. I actually happen to have an M4 CS at home, which is based on a facelifted G82, so same sort of era as this car. And that car was the first car that I'd driven with this new wheel, and I hate it. I really, really hate it. It's horrible. What are BMW thinking? I don't know. Hopefully that'll be the last I talk about this big, silly, fat steering wheel. I'm going to interrupt this video to say that I now have a motorcycle YouTube channel. It's called Two Wheels Achilles. If you like your motorcycles, please head over and subscribe. Cheers. My next small complaint is actually kind of Swift performance related, but there is a caveat around this. The car belongs to Russ and Tim, and Russ and Tim are about 5'7", maybe 5'8" on a good day. So they sit a lot lower, especially in these standard M Sport seats. Me, on the other hand, with the seat all the way down, I feel like I'm sitting relatively high. I could get a helmet on in here, but I don't think I've ever driven an M2 with regular seats aside from at the launch back in April 2023, and that was only a few hours behind the wheel. Driving position itself's not bad, but that sun visor, you see, if I sit upright, that sun visor almost blocks out some of my important vision, which does in turn make driving this car a little bit trickier. I've had it for a couple of hours now since I did the intro, and yeah, I've kind of been hunching most of the time just so I can get down below the sun visor and get a nice clear view out. So just bear that in mind. If you are above 5'10", 5'11", and you think sun visors look cool, which I personally don't, just bear that in mind because they can end up restricting your vision. I'm sure on track that's not so much of an issue, but when you're out on the road, I like to see as much as I can. And in fact, that's part of the reason that about 6 months ago when I got my M2 back on the road, or 9 months ago, I actually asked Russ to lift the driver's seat up a little bit, because although it was perfect on track, on the road I felt like my vision was a little bit impaired sitting so low, and I didn't like that. So now it's better on the road, and I've sacrificed a little bit when I'm on the track. Now, although this car has about £8,000 worth of mods on it, and I don't think that includes fitting, obviously you don't necessarily have to go for all of those. And I think the popular options or packages will be things like springs and spacers, especially these adjustable springs, because depending on where you live in the UK, you can set that ride height. And I've already scraped that front splitter a little bit when pushing on doing some flybys earlier on today. So if this was mine, I'd probably lift it 5, maybe even 10 mil. But if you live in a place that has nicer roads, then obviously you can drop that. And if you do lots of track work, then you can drop it further. So it's nice having that adjustability. But yeah, if you're just having springs and spacers, then, well, I don't know what that would cost off the top of my head. But I'm guessing it would be under £2,000. And I think aesthetically and performance-wise, that's probably a really good place to start, because dropping these G-Series cars, especially the M2, a little bit and bringing those wheels out a little bit just improves the way they look so much. Minor changes improve the looks of this car massively. This particular car actually came on Yokohama tyres, which is new for M cars, at least M cars that I've seen delivered in the UK over the past 3 or 4 years. And although this car's only done 2,000 miles, they've been relatively hard miles, because I know Russ has tracked this car, and Russ is a very good driver, and he went on and on about how good it is on track in its current setup, and we'll get onto that a bit later. I can believe that because it feels mega once you start loading things up. But an hour ago, the roads were actually quite greasy and it's only 6 degrees outside. And I have to say that those tyres were really struggling to give me any kind of grip. Thankfully, in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the sun's come out and suddenly all of those damp patches have disappeared and I can feel the car coming back to life and finding grip and traction. Because remember, this is a rear wheel driven car now with almost 600 horsepower. It feels ballistically fast. In fact, let's just go for a little overtake along here. I'll wait for a clear section down to third. I mean, that was we are going to talk about what this car's like when you push it a bit harder soon, but as a little teaser, it's ballistic. It really is. Once again, I have that M4 CS at home and I think that's rated at 550, 560, and this definitely feels quicker once you're on the move. Off the line, it really struggles. Just talks about the tyres, the conditions. In the winter, X-Drive M cars are undoubtedly quicker on the road, especially when it's a bit greasy. Next thing to talk about are these MMX paddles, and I have to say, when I first used them pulling away from Swift, I thought they were a bit loud, a bit too much, but I like to use the manual paddles all the time, even when I'm cruising around. Only when I'm in thick traffic on the motorway will I be in drive and let the gearbox do it. So I'm probably not the perfect person to ask. And in the couple of hours that I've been driving this car, well, I've actually really grown to like that loud, very positive click. And Russ made a very good and valid point earlier. He told me that when you're on track, you're always wearing a helmet. When you've got a helmet on, for those of you that haven't been on track, well, your hearing at least sort of 30-50% disappears. And so the standard paddles, you probably wouldn't hear that click. And although you'd still feel it, it is nice to know that you've changed gear, especially on track. Talking of the automatic box, I mean, it's really quick. It feels like they have tweaked the software a little bit with this LCI version. Like I said in Tony's G80 M3 LCI review a few months ago, it feels like BMW have fettled their, let's say, regular M2 or their competition M3 and M4 with some of their CS know-how, the stuff that they developed and learnt with cars like the G80 M3 CS that's probably been out, what, 2 years now. They've taken some of that software and put it into their regular M cars, and as a result, we've all benefited. The gear changes definitely feel extremely positive, very quick. Obviously, you can adjust the gear change ferocity down here. There's 3 different modes, and when you're in the most ferocious, it's a real big kick in the seat when you change gear. I think they've engineered that in there. You'll probably find that if you're on track and going for a time attack, you'd put it into the middle setting because it's a bit smoother. But ironically, we all complained about the ZF 8-speed being too smooth for an M car, and now they seem to have engineered in some DCT feeling. Let's just do a second to third because that's real noticeable. We've got some nice corners coming up here, so let's just talk about the way this car handles. Well, because it's set up quite aggressively, 2.5 degrees negative camber on the front axle, and I think it's about 2 degrees on the rear axle. When you start pushing on and pushing into that travel, pushing into those tyres, everything comes alive. This car is set up really more to go on track at the moment, and Russ did say that to me when I left earlier on, he said that, you know, basically the last time he used it properly was on track. If you're using this car on road only, you'd probably knock that front setting down to 1.5 or 2 degrees maximum, not 2.5 for the road. It's just too much. You're very rarely going to get to load that up enough where the tyre is actually touching the tarmac at its sort of maximum capacity, where it's sitting across the tread properly. But saying that, unlike my F87 M2 Club Sport build, that car, although it has a very similar setup in terms of geometry, so 2.5 degrees on the front axle and about 2 on the rear, that car along here would be shooting left and right and feel really nervous and pointy and stuff that's great when you're out on track, but not so great on the road. I have to say, this car on the road doesn't feel too different to a stock M2. Like, I could let go of the wheel and it doesn't feel like it's gonna fire me off into the nearest field, and that's a good thing, because you want your road car that you've tweaked a little bit and had some geo done and camber plates, etc. You want it to still feel relatively like a road car, so it doesn't feel like a race car, and that's really difficult to get a nice compromise or blend. About 18 months ago, I had a long-termer G87 M2 manual from BMW UK. I had that car for about 3.5, 4 months. And during that time, I never once thought that it lacked propulsion. I never once thought that it felt slow. It was a perfect blend of power and torque. And in fact, Patrick and I took that car over to the Nürburgring, including actually Petrolped, for our Drive Talk podcast episodes. By the way, please subscribe to Drive Talk podcast if you haven't already. It's going really, really well, and we're so close to 10,000 subscribers. Anyway, we took that car out to Germany, and I VMAXed that car. I think it was at about 180 miles an hour, and at that point it either ran out of revs or it hit a limiter. So that car was really fast. This LCI has an extra 20 horsepower. So it's gone up from 460 to 480, nearly 500 horsepower in a rear wheel drive M2. Then you add the MMX tuning module. I can't remember what they call it. And that gives us another 100 horsepower. I'm not sure what the torque gain is, but I'm sure it's equally as impressive. And the second I put my foot down for the first time in this car, Sao Paulo Yellow Mini, although they probably don't call it Sao Paulo Yellow, I'm not sure what they call it. The second I put my foot down in this car, the first time in a lower gear, I just couldn't believe it. I like to drive 99% of the cars that I get with traction switched off, regardless of the time of the year, because to me it brings back some engagement, especially in these modern cars. But I'll tell you what, I had to really think hard and fast about whether I should be driving this car with everything switched off, because second gear, 30 miles an hour, you put your foot down. I mean, that will do. The tyres have got plenty of temperature in them now, so plenty of grip. Earlier on they had none, and this car felt extremely spiky. Tuning boxes tend to give you more up top and almost delay the boost. They feel a bit more boosted, a bit more old school. So although you get more power and more torque at the top of the rev range, sometimes it takes a while for that to sort of come in. And although this feels extremely smooth, there's definitely a little delay down low, and then when it hits, it's massive. Now, I might be reading that wrong, because I'm misinterpreting when it does come in, it's so much more powerful than a standard car. I mean, this thing is just crazy. Remember, we're talking 580 horsepower, and I'm guessing that's probably a conservative figure. That's just absolutely nuts. In any gear, it's so fast. the standard car is too fast for the public road. This thing is just ridiculous. A couple of things to think about if you're looking at getting yourself a tuning box like this MMX, and I would hate myself if I didn't say it. The second you plug something like a tuning box into your modern BMW M car, your warranty could be affected. So just bear that in mind. Just remember that, because I don't want to encourage people to do this to their pride and joy and then find out that their M car has now got a black flag across the entire warranty. So it's always a little bit of a risk. But that takes me to my next point. I think I'm not sure if you need a tuning box on the M2 rear-wheel drive or any of the rear-wheel drive G-Series platforms, because I think around 460, 480, 500 horsepower is the sweet spot for a rear-wheel drive car. Once you go over that, unless conditions are perfect, like on a track day, and even then, you wouldn't be able to floor it out the second gear hairpin. I just don't think it needs it. On the other hand, this tuning box in something like my M3 Touring or any of the X-Drive platform cars, wow, I mean, they feel like they could do with an extra 100 horsepower all day long. So in one of those, then sure, go for it. But just remember about the warranty stuff. What's my conclusion with this car and setup? Well, if it was me and I was doing it on a budget, I would go for the adjustable springs and spacers and camber plates, so that I could track my M2 occasionally, because I'm sure this feels miles better on track, on circuit, in its current setup. It would also be a lot kinder to tyres, so actually, although the outlay initially is going to cost you more, down the track, if you do 2 or 3 track days a year, you're going to get through a lot less rubber, because it's going to rely less on the outside shoulder of the tyre, which is the first thing to go on most road cars, and it's going to actually utilise and use all of the rubber, so it'll be a lot kinder to the tyres. So yeah, springs and spacers, which is something I've talked about for years. The body kit, well, I mean, the world's your oyster with the body kit. The Maxxon stuff suits this car really well. I would say the boot lip spoiler is a little bit big and exaggerated for me, and also the Maxxon stuff is relatively affordable, so very handy, especially if you're like me, you're good at smashing splitters off the front end of your car. Very hard to prevent that happening here in the UK, so I'd rather have something costing a few £100 than something costing £1,500. The tuning module, it's almost too much for that rear axle. I'm sure if you had some warm Cup 2s on there, they would lay the power down a lot better. But if you're using this car as an everyday all-round car, I'm not sure if you need that. But I would love to try that tuning module in a regular G81 Touring, because I think that would work really, really well in that car. The last thing to cover is, has this modified G87 M2 been compromised as a road car? We've already talked about the fact that although it's set up geometry-wise quite aggressively and for track, it doesn't tramline and doesn't feel too different to a regular one. In terms of the adaptive suspension, well, we still have that, because remember, these are just ride height adjustable springs, so we've still got those adaptive dampers and they work. We can knock it back into comfort or sport plus if we're out on a smooth circuit, so that's all really good. There is a little bit more cabin noise in here, and I'm guessing that's probably the top mounts, the camber plates and stuff, just vibrates through the cabin a little bit more, but nothing really night and day. I could only notice it if I jumped out of a regular car and into this one, and that's really good, because once again, my F87, you know you're in a proper built sort of track machine. Thanks so much for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a thumbs up if you did. Leave any comments and questions below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please head over and check out Swift Performance. on their Instagram page, and I'll put a link to their website below if any of these parts and upgrades interest you. Until the next one, take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.